Good evening, and welcome to Story Hour. I'm tonight's host, Laura Blackwell. My co-host, the marvelous Daniel Marcus, started Story Hour pretty close to 6 years ago now, at a time when we were all shut in, away from each other, and really needed to connect somehow. And Daniel knew that stories are a very good way of connecting with people. And so we've been here pretty much every Wednesday since, because we like that. And our basic formula has stayed the same. We always have two extremely awesome writers of speculative fiction reading some extremely awesome stories of their own. Tonight is no exception. Tonight we have Cynthia Gómez and Jiang. So welcome back to those of you returning, and welcome to those of you here in the Zoom for the first time or on YouTube. That's cool too. If you are here on the Zoom, feel free to chime in on the text chat. It is probably clearer than the way I'm talking. And leave us a comment on YouTube. It's nice for the authors to know that you're watching and enjoying their stories. And our first writer tonight is Jiang. Jiang is a Chinese-Canadian writer, Ignite, Bram Stoker, and Nebula Award winner, and Hugo Astounding, Locus Aurora, and BFSA Award finalist, born in Changle, Fujian, currently residing in Markham, Ontario. Her work can be found in FNSF, The Dark, Clark's World, and The Master's Review, among others. She is the author of A Palace Near the Wind, Ling Hun, and I Am I. Or maybe that's I Am AI. I should have asked that one. Find her at ijiang.ca. CA, because she's in Canada. Welcome back to Story Hour.
Thank you for having me. It's
It
actually
is
kind of funny. Oh, sorry. I was going to say I had the .ca because the .com was no longer available.
really, that's a thing that happens. That's how I ended up with the worst social media handle ever, because my name is actually more common than you might think. So the things we do to be online. So it is so lovely to have you back. Thank you for joining us. What do you have for us tonight?
Thank you again for having me. It's lovely to be back. So I will be reading a short story that I have in an anthology called The Earth Bleeds at Night, and it is called A Thousand Forbidden Weddings and a Song for Dead Darlings. The content warning is basically there will be dead bodies and a lot of death. All right, so this is A Thousand Forbidden Weddings and a Song for Dead Darlings. You are outside your body, looking down at yourself on the hospital bed, surrounded by family and strangers alike, with smiles too eerie, too joyous for the airlessness of the suffocating atmosphere. Next to you, mother stands, eyes rimmed crimson, lids both above and below swollen, purple veined, pulsing, twitching, bluing lips holding back their quiver, but the quakes are apparent, none the less if you look close enough. Father, behind, stoic as always, teeth clenched beneath thin pressed lips, hands clasped in front of him. My darling, whispers a woman who's not your mother, and you wonder who she's speaking to when she's a stranger, yet she's looking directly at you. Until you'll be perfect, perfect for my son. He'll be so, so happy to have you. A throat clearing hidden in the crowd of gathered faces. My son would love her as well, says a man with hands folded behind his back, chest tilting forward as he regards you with narrow eyes and a sly smile. 20,000, if we can take her right now, says an elder as she prods aside those in front of her with a cane. The fractured design of the aged wood seems on the verge of splintering, save for the fact the elder's bird-like frame holds only skin and a little flesh beneath. 35, the woman who's not your mother says. The man with the folded hands clears his throat. 40. 60, the elder. 75, the woman. 100, the man. 250, the elder. A hush, a dead silence. A single shuddering breath from mother and a disgruntled grunt from father. The price is higher than the Blackwell father offered mother's family for her hand. 150, which was far past a modest amount. The elder, self-satisfied, prods the side of your hospital bed, wood clanging against metal, a gavel struck at the end of an auction. I'll send for her tonight. At midnight, the elder says. Then in a whisper, that should be enough time for you to say your goodbyes. By midnight, mother and father stand next to you, hovering above. Your hand is enveloped in mother's, and father's settled over top. You wonder what they'll be doing with the money, if they'll sell your belongings or keep them and make a shrine. You wonder how long they'll mourn you before they refocus their attention on your sister, less than 2 years of age, left at home with grandmother. And you wonder what they'll tell her when she's older, how you'll be remembered. The doctor arrives to pull the plug, expression hidden behind a mask they don't need to have pulled up. Spectacles glaring so you can't see if they're bored or pitying, but before they do, mother shows you a picture of a young man no older than you, maybe a year or two different, max. Couldn't have been a graduate, maybe halfway through undergraduate studies, like you. I heard he's a nice boy, and I know he'll treat you well. She strokes slow circles on the back of your hand under father's warm, clammy palm. There's no way mother could have known that for sure, but she seems convinced, or rather, these words are for her own comfort to convince herself her choice is correct. When the heart monitor flatlines and the doctor offers their condolences to mother and father, your heart halts, as do your breaths, but you know you're not dead. Not yet. Not yet. Minghun, you've heard these before. Weddings, marriages that usually occur between the dead, though there have been forbidden cases where the living are forced, though not always and sometimes willingly instead, to marry the dead. Sometimes to appease angry and lingering ghosts, other times to accompany them into the afterlife the way Joss paper money and items and homes are burnt and sent to spirits in the nether worlds. Forbidden because a matchmaker hands the elder your death certificate. She receives a more than a satisfying commission from the smile you see on her face as she waves to the elder who has helped onto the cart in which you're already resting inside a cushioned coffin. Cushioned in appearance only, because it felt as though you were lying on cement. At her home, an antique decorated manor with elaborate floral patterned wallpaper and dark wooden floors, the handlers and the elder hired treat you as though you're alive, but you can tell, even with their faces held expressionless in the elder's presence, that they want nothing more than to be finished with rubbing your cooling body with sweet chrysanthemum oils, redressing you in fine red silks embroidered with gold, painting your colorless lips with rouge, and brushing a similar colored powder onto your pale cheeks so you look as though you're in a deep slumber rather than an unawakening death. The elder's hand roams across your cheek, your closed eyes, as she whispers, voice a grating rasp, beautiful. You thought your parents might be present, but they aren't, and neither are your husbands. After all, who would want to be present during a ceremony to see their children dead? Tassels sit dangling from the sides of your headpiece, a red veil thrown over top. Your husband is a wooden effigy carved in what you think is a caricature version of the photo of the young man mother showed you. Eyes larger, lips longer, thinner, cheekbones and jawline sharper. In your hand is a ribboned fabric bouquet of a large crimson flower, the same as strapped over your husband's effigy chest as a sash. Your wedding dress is a pool of scarlet. Your husband's effigy sits in a stiff garments with colors that match yours with midnight accents and gold. You and your husband are facing the elder, seated in the chairs that prevent your corpse from flopping over, behind a table filled with bowls of apples, oranges, pears, carefully sliced and plated, seeming dishes with chopsticks set, Red candles, wicks lit, rest on each side of the table, wax dripping down the side like thick perspiration slowed by the dense breaths released into the air by the elder as she regards you both, separately, then together, her gaze scrutinizing, as though the two of you are still alive. The elder lifts your veil with two steady hands, and that is when you feel yourself blink, and the elder, bewildered, jerks in her spot, your veil fluttering back down, the elder's hand resting on her lap, trembling. Still, you cannot move. Your eyes do not blink again, no matter how hard you try to will them to. Next to you, a whisper floats. With each bow, the host announces. And appearing by your own hovering ghost is your new husband's. Lank hair hanging into eyes with deep shadows beneath like suit crescents, lips cracked, cheeks skunt. Not at all like his photo, vibrant, alight, alive. My love. His voice is a harsh scrape against your eardrums, pitched as though he's lost use of it and is only now relearning to the feeling of sounds and the way each word wraps around the tongue, contorts in the shape of its will. At first, you thought he's referring to you, but he wasn't looking at you, but past you as someone who wasn't there. Help me, he says. You don't know how. You can't even help yourself. Parents fear that their children will die before them, and others fear their children will come back to haunt them, and some worry that their children will be lonely in the afterlife. There are few who might even want to join their children, finding it too difficult to live with their own failure as parents, and yet they're too afraid of death themselves to follow. But it's believed that certainly the dead would appreciate being loved, being needed, even after they're gone. With this elder, this isn't quite the case. She'd wanted to appease her grandson, yes, because it seemed he's been causing quite the haunting ruckus in her home. Torn edges of portraits, overfilling sinks, ashes in the fine weavings of rugs and carpets, bulbs exploding after flickering like firecrackers, which she seems unamused about and lacking in patience for, rather than the mournful sorrow she should have been displaying for the recent dead. After the ceremony, the elder returns you to your parents in that same coffin you arrived in, a closed casket funeral followed by your lowering into a graveyard outside the city, up a lush mountain near a collapsed mine that took the lives of too many youths. Plots of lands have been diminishing in number, and you're surprised your parents didn't cremate you instead. Apparently, it was the elder's idea, and she even funded part of the money for that expensive plot you now rest in beneath the soil. It should have been obvious why, but you don't realize until later that night when the elder with hired handlers, the same ones who dressed you for the Minghuan, came to dig you back up from your grave, throws your body into a preservation coffin, the timeline of it all perfect for her wicked plan to resell you while you're still fresh, still complete, for 2, 3, 4 times the price she's bought you at, and had a wooden effigy made to take your place in the cheap coffin she commissioned and return to the gaping mouth of your empty grave. A mistake, and your husband's ghost laughs with you. You have never fallen in love in the short years you were alive. Your mother and father might have been the closest thing to this foreign feeling. The nanny you had a close second because she seemed to care more about your own childhood than you yourself, until she disappeared without a word, and you've wondered if it was because your mother was jealous. What did he look like? You asked your dead husband about his lover when you're loaded into the back of a truck with many other bodies halted in various states of decomposition. Some missing a limb or two, some without eyes, some slightly bloated, some bearing scars that reveal their cause of death, unnatural. Surrounded by dead darlings, you feel as though you are being shuttled away like livestock in number, yet treated like exotic species in price and packaging. You and your husband's ghost sit cross-legged facing one another on top of the lid of your shut coffin. His love is a young man from the mining community where your wooden effigy now rests, one that he has been waiting for, who had already been buried, only it is in a place your dead husband cannot reach, not like this, tethered to you. You're about to ask if there might be a way to sever your bond, though it felt better to be together than alone, or at least better to wallow in the loneliness together. When a live girl thought unalive begins to sing at the back of the truck, collapsed and wedged between two coffins with her broken lips like a rag doll. You're surprised that the handlers haven't sewn her lips shut, though it might be for the sole reason of fetching a higher price since she cannot run anyhow. She laughs, delirious, eyes locked on us both. She can see us, and after the song, she tells us of how she had been buried alive, then dug up before death kissed and marred her skin, before the blood in her veins had even dried, where her makeup still sits fresh on her face, supple, alive. Her mouth opens, closes, opens again, a fish gaping for air, a bird with broken wings and talons drowning in water. Minghuan, forbidden because there have been those kidnapped, murdered, dug from graves, ash stolen from funeral homes and graves sold on the black market. Unsettled ghosts rise like vapor, like wafting steam from their coffins, some stacked within the truck to join in the chorus of vengeful voices like the unalive alive girls. Some were targeted because they were rejected by society, abandoned by their families for the cruel reason of physical and mental imperfections. Some were injected with heavy sedatives by those hoping to have them at the ceremonies, alive, half conscious, only to have them pass away because of overdose. Others were bullied into committing suicide both before and after the Minghuan so they could not be wedded to another. Improper burials. All. All our ghostly heads turned to the only one among us still alive, as though this might be the only chance we have at escape. At least this way, both us and she would have a choice, no matter how limited, even if it feels as though we are choiceless. Will you marry us? Before reaching the black market, the doors to the back of the trucks are flung open, rattling the ghosts of dead darlings, among which your husband and you drift. Each ghost weaving themselves into our living vessel, the unalive alive girl, mending her broken body, half-tethered soul. Our vessel rises, starts crawling, then walking jerkily, a puppet yanked forward towards the elder at the yawning opening of the truck. We sing, my darling, my darling. We sing, you'll be perfect, perfect for us. We will be so, so happy to have you. With hands folded behind our back, chest tilting forward as we regard her with narrow eyes and a sly smile, we hum. It is midnight. That should have been enough time for you to say your goodbyes. And as her cane falls from her hand, clatters onto the ground, and her mouth falls open, a maw from which drifts the scent of rotten musk and sour fear and bitter death, we smile, and smile wider, and whisper in a rasping voice, beautiful. The elder's scream resounds, but we swallow each of her echoes. Then together we head into the night for the mountains, for the mines, for the graves, marked, unmarked, filled, emptied, empty, with a song for dead darlings trailing from our lips. Words rattling like trains over tracks, the clicking of bone against bone, the dribble of blood like rusting tears coating our tongue. Feet numb, feet cold, toes numb, fingers bloodless, expression fraughtless. Lipis veins, iris lips, eyes open, eyes closed. Breaths held, breaths gone, whispered gasp, gasp whisper, dead darlings, darlings dead, undead dead, dead undead. Thank you.
Wow. Well, that was very atmospheric. Yeah, ask Daniel. He'll tell you that it takes a lot to strike me wordless. But every now and then, every now and then, that was wonderful. We like to take a moment between the two readers to just take in the first story, ready ourselves for another. Usually I do this with the breath, but after the ending of that one, it feels a little creepy. Just close your eyes maybe for a moment. Take a break. And ready yourself for our next reader. Although this one may haunt for a while, and that's okay too. Everybody, that was Jiang. I thank you very much. That was wonderful. And our next reader is also very wonderful. So our next reader tonight is Cynthia Gómez. Cynthia Gómez writes horror and other types of speculative fiction set primarily in Oakland, where she makes her home. And I thought at first, do we need to say Oakland, California? Is there another Oakland anywhere in the world?
It was in Auckland.
Auckland, it's not the same. It's even spelled differently. I think there can really be only one Oakland when it comes right down to it. But back to Cynthia. She especially loves themes of revenge, retribution, and resistance to oppression. So she's really happy tonight, I bet. Her work has appeared in Fantasy Magazine, Strange Horizons, Luna Station Quarterly, Nightmare Magazine, Night Tide Magazine, and numerous anthologies. Lips Like Sugar, her queer vampire story, was nominated for a 2024 Ignite Award. Her short story collection, The Nightmare Box and Other Stories, was released from Cursed Morsels Press. Great little press. They put out some fantastic stuff. Seriously, go check them out. In July 2024, and her first novel, Muñeca, will be out from Penguin Random House in June 2026. And I just found its cover, and it is freaky. Y'all have got to look for this. I'll make sure that we have a link in the show notes. Ooh, she's even, oh, okay, Cynthia, when I shut up and the camera's completely on you, we've got to have you hold that up again because that is a killer cover. You can find more about her at cynthiasaysboo.wordpress.com. Boo, Cynthia, and welcome back.
Hello, thank you very much for having me. It's very good to be back. And I've been looking forward to reading these pieces. So I agree, Alex, the Nightmare Box cover is also fantastic.
Oh, can you show it to us on your arm there?
So on my arm, my left arm is the cover of the Nightmare Box from the Nightmare Box, which is from the Nightmare Box. So there we go. It's boxes all the way down.
And please show us the Muñeca cover again.
So here's the cover for Muñeca. Hopefully it can come through well enough. This is an advanced unproofed copy, so we can get an idea. We can see the little blood drippy. That the cover artist did such a good job, and it's sufficiently scary. So yes, that is Muñeca, and she comes out in June of this year.
And what are you reading for us tonight?
So tonight is 3 flash pieces, all very much in the same theme that you introduced, Laura. The first is called Scab, and I will start with this. They're in order of shortest to longest. Scab. Lucia had bills to pay, so she told herself she'd be forgiven for slipping past the picket line of her coworkers on strike, and she didn't give any more thought to what she'd done, even the day she looked down at her hand and she saw it. A blotch, just above her wrist, scarlet and thick, on a hand she had no memory of having scraped. But there it was, the body's way of reacting to damage, of trying to heal. A scab. Just as the picket line swelled with each day, the scarlet patch spread further over her hand, edges puffy and red. She would look down at the box she was packing to find the bandage soaked through, the scab sloughing off, blood staining the cardboard, while around her the speed alarm screeched. By Friday, It had reached her knuckles, and she was written up for falling behind minimum speed. That Sunday, she logged into the scheduling app, hand wailing as it navigated the keypad. Blood dripped onto the phone, smearing the words that stayed the same even as she entered her password over and over, the login screen flashing the same red letters every time. Sorry, that team member does not exist. And there is Scab. Next is in a very similar vein, and it is called Hearts and Minds. Rob surveyed his captive audience of coffee chain employees, gripping the lectern and the poster with his logo, an image of an employee and a boss shaking hands. He was proud of his record, displayed in 40-point font at the top of his website, keeping workplaces union-free since 1997. He knew just which phrases to deploy at these meetings to justify his 5-figure minimum fee, just when to use tactic 7, fear and intimidation, and when to deploy a combination of 4 and 6, inertia and loyalty, the latter most effective when he could bring in a crying manager or two. His waiting list was nearly 6 months long, he told his clients, because what he delivered was well worth the wait. So he had no way to make sense of the furtive glances and poorly concealed hand motions that the employees were making as he began his presentation, opening with the line, "Unions are a business and they just want to grow." Instead of rapt attention as he warned them of the high cost of union dues, he was seeing smirky grins blossom on their faces, their eyes darting to what looked like large yellow cards in their laps. And were those golf pencils in their hands, scritching against the cards with every argument he made? Annoyance began sparking in his chest, flaring into anger as the little grin spread across the room, and then it was clenching just under his breastbone, like a fist. The scritching sounds grew louder when he got to the slide with cartoons of union bosses gorging on caviar, and now his entire chest was a fist, clenching and unclenching in pain. His hands fumbled with the remote and clicked on his last slide, scenes of the workplace's one happy family, the fragile peace that unions aimed to destroy. And then one of them, all covered with rings and tattoos, held up her card, their card, who could tell these days, and shrieked, "Bingo!" And the laughter in the room burst out like a thunderclap. A thunderclap he could feel inside his chest. And as he collapsed on the carpet, the last things he saw in his life were their faces, those grins wet and shining, and the poster slipping from the lectern and onto his heaving chest, the two hands turned to each other, gripping each other tight. So that is Hearts and Minds. I forgot to mention that where these stories appeared, Scab appeared in this anthology of 206 stories of 206 words each, and it's got a lot of wonderful authors in it. And the Hearts and Minds story appeared in The Cosmic Background, which is a very wonderful Flash-focused online magazine. And the third story is called A Girl Goes on a Date Alone at Night. And this came out last year in Nightmare magazine. She found the first man on Tinder or maybe on Hinge, and the restaurant where they met was glowing with antique lamps and green brocade wallpaper and velvet couches, everything soft and inviting, not a single hint of what was to unfold in an hour or two. The raspberry lipstick coating her mouth left a perfect kiss on the bar napkin that he stuffed into his coat with a smile, crumpling it under his hands. She was all smooth and shiny and bright, her pink pencil skirt keeping her steps quick and small, and in his dark bedroom she slipped off her blush-colored sweater, like a cape. She was ready when his heavy hands began to grope without permission, when he stopped asking if this was okay, when his hand clamped over her mouth in a way he probably told himself was just part of a game, one he'd never asked her if she wanted to play. That was when he felt it, her body collapsing under his hands, crumbling into whorls that tasted like damp sugar and sent his body into convulsions as he took it in. It coated his lips and his tongue and his fingers that he then rubbed into his eyes, and on contact they began to scream in pain. When he slumped onto his unwashed sheets, it brought his end faster as he breathed more of it into his nose and his mouth, this crumbling stuff that he had thought was a girl, a slim, fresh girl with perfect wide eyes, joyful and sweet as cotton candy. The next man's friends swore to the detectives that he never used dating apps, that he had a girlfriend at home. None of the staff of the bar actually remembered seeing her come in, the girl whose sharp nails gleamed against her shot glass, the color of a hot pepper, one bartender said. None of them noted anything unusual as he leaned over her on his bar stool, wet mouth grinning as he asked, "You ever get tired of being called exotic and spicy?" That wasn't what wrote his demise, nor were the shots of tequila he kept sliding her way, or the way the worm wriggled in his teeth, pickled and white. By the time he pulled her into the alley and pressed his lips over hers, by the time the burning sensation spread through his mouth, by the time he fell to the ground and clutched his pounding heart, his nearly purple face frozen in a rictus of pain, he had shown her full well he deserved it. She was long gone, of course, by the time the paramedics and then examiners and then pathologists took over his body, trying to understand the story it told. None of them could explain how he had managed to ingest enough capsaicin to cause cardiac arrest in a quiet alleyway with no restaurants for blocks around, or why the napkin tossed over his chest bore the marks of a mouth painted the color of a ghost pepper, shining and ripe, but yielded not a single trace of DNA except the victim's own. Stories began blooming all over the map, flowering 3 or 4 times in a single town, then perhaps miles or entire time zones away, strings of bodies like bite marks on an exposed neck. The college boys who grinned and elbowed each other at what looked to be pliant prey, their own laughter the very last sound that they heard. The ones who used their own awkward fumblings to conceal the danger they brought. The ones whose friends swore up and down would never harm a soul. He doesn't have a mean bone in his body, they loved to say. And whose bodies erupted in bruises precisely the size of their own hands. Sometimes investigators would find a bar napkin imprinted with lipstick, but even as that calling card began to attract attention, it led nowhere at all. The color might be candy apple red, blushing peach, black licorice, and yet the shape and even the size of the lips themselves always changed. And nobody could explain how the only biological evidence, hair, skin, anything, came from the victims themselves. If she had to explain it, she would say that she willed herself into being with nothing more than the power of her desire. Her favorite appearance so far had been all tattoos and muscles and boots that reached to her knees, catnip to the type of men who said they liked their women strong. When she sipped the drink he'd shot through with white powder in a white envelope, it soaked into every one of the veins, the ones that were so close to real, thrumming and liquid and hot. He guided her stumbling feet through the door of the bar, winking when a stranger's eyes widened at the weight, the heft of the body that he wrangled into a cab. The arching snakes on her thigh, the unsheathed knife inked on her shoulder that he half carried, half pulled into a room where he had done this before. But this time, when he pressed his mouth over hers, he drank it in, just what he'd poured into her glass, but stronger, spiked with the fury and shame of the women who'd lain just where she was now. If she'd wanted his body to spasm, to writhe out of control, she got what she wanted. His hands clawed at his closing throat as if he could bleed out what he'd already drunk in. When he was found the next morning, the sheets were soaked in his foaming spittle and a substance precisely the same as what he put into her drink. The drink of a perfect girl, the girl of his dreams, a girl who didn't exist. Thank you.
Talk about giving someone a taste of their own medicine, right? But that was 3? We're done?
Yeah, that was 3. I've read all my flash pieces, so I don't have anything more.
I'm just greedy and don't want it to end.
I
Daniel.
I watched the Deer Lady from Reservation Dogs, and she was kind of the inspiration for this figure. So I guess I need to go back and rewatch Reservation Dogs and get more inspiration.
I haven't seen that. I've heard such good things.
It's really good. It's
Yeah.
really very sweet and very human, and quite a sharp sense of humor.
What I've seen from it has been excellent. Oh, Daniel, what a night.
Yeah. Thank you both so much. Lovely work.
And this is so much of what I love about horror. I feel like the word horror is it's such a misnomer for the genre, because it's not always just about being scared. Sometimes it's about realizing you really should be uncomfortable. Sometimes it's about feeling the dread creep up on you. And sometimes it's just very affirming.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it breaks your heart. I feel like we've really had a lot of the high points of the genre tonight. So thank you very much, Cynthia and I.
Thank you for having me. And thank you, I, for your very ghostly story.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
Please come back, both of you.
I need more, Cynthia. More.
Yes. We'll have to get together at Stoker Con.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And have a wonderful rest of your evenings, whatever they involve.
Yes, absolutely. I have a little bit more to tell people. If you come back next week, there will be another 2 wonderful writers. Next week, it will be Jennifer Hudak and Randy Dawn. And it is a good idea to check storyhour2020.com to check the calendar for what's coming up, check the recordings for what you may have missed, maybe watch this one a few more times, whatever you need. The stories are there for you. You can also watch any stories you may have missed just by diving into Story Hour's YouTube channel at Story Hour 2020 on YouTube. Cynthia Gómez, Jiang, thank you so much for sharing these stories with us tonight. Thank you also to SIFWA for the Givers Fund grant that helps us keep these stories coming. Thank you to Daniel Marcus, without whom this Zoom room would just be a sad, echoing, ghostly place with no stories. And thank you, all of you who are here tonight in the Zoom, all of you who are watching on YouTube now or at some point in the future that I can't even guess at. Because a recording is something like a haunting. As long as you can all be there in the same place, you can have that same experience. And this, at least, is a good one. Thank you for Story Hour.